So are you guys going to be at the Town Point Wine Fest?
Yep. So we're gonna do 6 festivals in 5 weeks in October and November.
Okay, so
Um,
I'd like to dig deeper onto like festivals and stuff like that. How much does it cost to be a winery there?
Usually it's a few $100s to register and get a 10 by 10 tent, and then
A few
most
hundred,
wine
like 200 or like 800?
depends on the festival.
Okay, so like that festival specifically, and the
Yes.
reason I apparently to be a food vendor there, it's like $2,500 a day or something like that.
So I think it depends on the kind of event, right? And I
Uh-huh.
would say that Norfolk specifically for us as a winery is a few hundred. It's not 800. I'd say
Okay.
it's probably 300 or 400, but it is a wine festival, right? And so it's meant to be, especially in Norfolk, who really have been champions of the education piece of their festivals, whether that's the beer festival or the wine festival, and have really put a lot of time into making sure that it's got some of the opportunities for you to really sample and learn and not just like get wasted. There's that, right? But I think that there's other kinds of events that we would be a part of that may be a food festival that they need a winery. There's beer festivals that they may want to have an alternative to beer, and we could go into there. And it's going to be different pricing for us in a beer festival than the breweries, just like it would be different pricing for a food vendor at a wine festival or at a beer
Got it. So
festival.
how do you then, from a business perspective, look at the list of events from a cost perspective, from an education perspective, from a clientele perspective, say, okay, this is exactly what we're looking for. Like, how do you come to that conclusion instead of it just being, everyone gets housed, which also happens at wine fest from 4 to 6 p.m. on any wine fest night. If you want to see some people get housed, that's the place to be in downtown Norfolk. I got plenty of videos to show, none of myself. But like, how do you come to that decision? Because I think a lot of people want to be at events, a lot of people want to sponsor events, a lot of people want to be in the community, but to actually figure out if this thing, as a guy who used to sell that to a lot of people too, like, how do you know that this thing is going to be a good bang for our buck? Like, what are the
Yeah.
things that you're looking for in that situation?
Yeah. And so for us, it's a couple of different ways to look at data. We have historical data from wine festivals that we've participated in the past, or from one-off events that we've participated in the past. So we can go backwards and look at sales that way, right? So we can say we went to this festival in 2017 and 2018. We met a lot of people, but didn't make a lot of sales. But ultimately, we made some new connections, so maybe there's a different value there. And others, we're looking at it in the context of how many of our competitors are going to be there and what kind of wines they're having, right? One of the challenges that festivals are having right now is that because so many places are short staffed, a lot of larger wineries aren't able to participate in festivals in the way that they could in the past because they're going to be busy harvesting grapes. And so we're looking at that. We're looking at data that the shows themselves will have ticket sales, and they'll have some data, not usually sales data, but some kind of allegories, to be able to speak to the successes they've had. And the other piece of it is, if it's one that we haven't tried and that we don't have a lot of information on, we just really have to do our best risk assessment of the time value of a particular festival, of a particular event, and give it a shot. I'll give you an example. This past Thursday, we did with the Virginia Living Museum, we did the Dino Wine Down, and so they did a museum mixers event, and we were the sole winery for a 300 ticket event. And it was a risk for us. It was a risk for them. But I think in the context of what we felt like we needed to be successful, that it was a success. And it also opened the door for 300 people, a lot of which were not familiar with, our business, that we were able to then work on reactivating. So we brought some QR codes for people to subscribe to our emails, and some, ways they could get discounts for their wine orders, and try to really just make sure that we maximize the opportunity when we're in front of people.
Interesting. So on the festival track, do you go outside of Hampton Roads? Do you go to Charlottesville at those types of festivals? And is
Yeah.
that
Yeah. So
interesting?
it's, we do like this year in April, we did the Shenandoah Apple Blossom Festival, which is like a week long festival of all kinds of events, and they had a 2 day wine event. We were one of what was originally going to be 25 wineries, and ended up being 12 because of staffing issues. And I mean, absolutely crushed it. We were very afraid we were going to run out of wine, and we had very much over prepared based on previous year's sales. And so for us, it's almost it's a bigger value proposition to hit the right shows out of town, because people will make more purchases because they can't just drive to the winery and pick up more wine, right? When we do Yorktown in October, when we do New Kent, when we do Powhatan, rest of Richmond, we'll do Norfolk. Of those festivals, those people are all within a pretty good proximity, right? So they may buy a bottle of wine at the festival, they may not, because they know that they can come by, in their own time. Out of town, that's not as much of an option, even if we do some shipping, because the cost, goes up to be able to do that.
So people that are out of town, if they love your wine, they can fill out some sort of form and it's like, hey, ship me a case of this, and then you guys accommodate that.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, but even at the winery, when people come for tastings from out of town, I mean, we see that, we drive more sales that way. And again, it's the same thing. It's the opportunity there at that moment to bring something back with them to North Carolina or DC or whatever. We get a lot of people that come to the historic triangle that'll come by the winery and kind of make plans while they're in town. And so for those, if the further away they are, the more likely they are to buy in a larger volume, right? And so for that, we're purposefully, positioning volume buys and promotions to be able to take advantage of that.
A case is 12 or 16?
12.
What does a case typically cost to ship?
I
mean, I realize that's a ridiculous question. Like, if I was in Northern Virginia and I wanted a case of something, what is that going to cost me?
Yeah, if we just do ground shipping, it could be $20 to $30. A lot of wineries, depending on volume, will absorb that cost, and that's kind of the standard for doing business. We didn't ship for a large portion of this year. We have the licenses, and we really are not promoting it on a wide level.
Is that just a simple ABC off, or is it?
There's a couple of things behind it, yeah, but it's really through UPS and through FedEx. They have specific wine shipping programs, right? The average person can't mail a bottle of wine in the mail. If you're an average person out there, please don't mail a bottle of wine. They'll take it and they won't get it. But they follow the processes. They understand the state to state, right, commerce and things that need to happen and the transport rules around that.
I've been directly involved within our entrepreneurial community for years. And the most common question I get is, Tim, I want to get involved, but I don't know what events I should attend. Well, Startwheel eliminates that pain point because we consolidate all the events you should attend into a single calendar. Now you'll be in the know and see where to spend your time. Gone is the need to search multiple websites and calendars. Just head to startwheel.org and see for yourself. That's startwheel.org.